Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Hunter, and one of the questions I get asked all the time is, what the heck is media studies? So in this video, I'm going to do my best to give you a clear answer to that question. Now on the one hand, I think it's really obvious, because anyone watching this video is probably already an expert in the media. Because it's movies, it's TV, it's video games, it's social media. It's all of those different forms of mass communication that we engage with all day, every day. Now, on the other hand, it is quite complicated because we look at media texts from these different areas in a lot of detail. And I want to talk about those 4 areas right now. So there are 4 key concepts to media studies, and they are media language, representation, audience, and institution. Media language refers to all the different ways that a media text can create meaning. So for a film, this might be a camera angle that suggests isolation, let's say, or a costume that creates meaning for the audience. We call these things codes, and they have a literal denotation and a suggested connotation. So let's look back at the picture of Darth Vader. What we have denoted is a guy in a black suit who's got a very angular skull-like helmet on. What are the connotations of these things? The color black could suggest mystery, the unknown, death, evil. The sharpness, those really sharp knife-like angles on his helmet, they almost resemble a knife, and I think that again shows danger. And then finally, the skull-like appearance, where he's got these 2 big visors which look like skull sockets. Skulls connote death. So what we're getting here is, just from Darth Vader's appearance, a clear message that he's the baddie in this, even if we aren't literally reading the codes like I'm doing for you now. Now let's play him in a full sequence, and it should be pretty obvious to you that the combination of the music, the way the camera looks at him from below, and the way that he speaks,
you may dispense with the pleasantries, Commander.
All of these things are creating a great deal of meaning for the audience. The second key concept is representation. Quite literally, how the media represents reality in their products. So let's jump straight into an example. In 2016, the UK voted to leave the EU. So how did the media represent this story? Well, that depends very much on where you get your news from. So let's take a look at The Sun. All the way through the campaign, they represented Brexit as a good thing, something that would reinforce Britishness and tell the EU where to stick it. And they did this via media language, but unlike film, for print this will be colour, typography, choice of imagery, language and headlines. Take a look at this particular front page. The sun rising behind an independent UK connotes new beginnings, triumph. It might also be a play on the newspaper's name, and the sun, like the newspaper, rising behind the earth, maybe they're suggesting Brexit was in some part thanks to them. It would be very easy for anyone who actually reads The Sun to believe that the UK leaving the EU was a good thing because of the way it's represented. This just goes to show just how much power and influence the media has. Now in contrast, let's take a look at how the same story of Brexit was represented in The Guardian. Here, it's represented very much as a bad thing, literally through the choice of the wording in the very worrying headline, but also via the other stories on the front page, which clearly celebrate all of the great things about being united with Europe. Another great way of thinking about representation is through Facebook. How do you represent yourself online via your choice of your profile picture, the things that you choose to like, the photos you choose to upload? All of these things are creating a representation of yourself. So the next key concept is audience. Who watches the media and why? Now this is arguably one of the most important things when you're creating a media text, because you're designing it to appeal to someone. So by studying the audience, we're kind of adding pieces to the puzzle as to why a media text looks the way it does, why it features the content it does, why they're representing things the way they do. Let's go straight to an example. Mojo is primarily aimed at mature male readers, whereas We Love Pop is primarily aimed at teenage girls. Now look at the difference in these 2 front covers. It's clear from the content, the design, even the layout, that each magazine probably wouldn't appeal very much to the opposing audience. As an adult male myself, the layout of We Love Pop is very cluttered and hectic in comparison to the much smaller, sophisticated layout of Mojo. Now why do this? I think it's because We Love Pop obviously is trying to appeal to teenage girls, and this front cover to me looks almost like a scrapbook or a stereotypical girl's journal, and it's going to appeal very much to that audience. It also looks like it's much more value for money, and it's so crammed full of content that it's most definitely worth spending your pocket money on. And finally, we study institution, which is basically just a fancy word for who makes the media. Now, why is that important? Well, think of the difference between a documentary made by the BBC and a documentary made by Channel 4. Or a video game made by a AAA developer like Bethesda in comparison to a game made by an indie such as Double Fine. Factors such as their funding, their ideology, they're going to have a huge impact on what they choose to make and how they represent the world, as well as more practical implications such as how their games are marketed and where and how they're distributed. Let's take Double Fine's adventure game Broken Age as an example. This game was a swan song to the old school point-and-click adventure game, which had kind of gone out of fashion with publishers and they stopped financing them. So Double Fine decided to put a campaign onto Kickstarter and let the fans actually fund a game. Now this had a huge impact on the final product because it made 3 million, which wasn't really enough to print discs, so it was distributed online. It meant the production values weren't going to be nearly as large scale as the likes of Fallout 4. And it meant they had a few complications halfway through production where they had to split the game in two to help finance the rest of the game. Knowing these little bits of information provide us extra content as to how the text was produced and why. So that's how we analyze real-world texts. But media studies is as much about analyzing as it is about making your own things. So if you were a media producer, how would you use media language to make the front cover of a magazine or represent an artist in a music video? Here's an A2 piece of coursework that one of my students did last year, and it's absolutely awesome. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to see the full video. Well, I hope I've answered that question somewhat as to what media studies is. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, leave any comments down in the description and I'll get straight back to you. And I'll see you next time.